Oh, that's wonderful. I see people from coast to coast. Let's turn the music off now and we'll get started. See people from coast to coast to coast here in Canada and also from all over. Thank you for those of you who this is your evening and a couple of you who I think is even your night. I'm so happy that you're here and have been able to join us today. My name is Heather Gross and I'm the Vice President Education here at Pearson. I'm also a year 20 alum and I want to shout out to the people I see on the call who I spent 2 years here with, Salim, Anulia, Estelle. I'm sure there's others I've missed, but I see your names really right away. I'm glad you're here. Today, I will
Laura
get
is here
into welcoming all of you much more officially, but to start, I do want to recognize that in our program today, one of the topics is our Reconciliation Action Plan. And to that end, I'm going to start today a little bit differently than I have in some other times. And that is by actually reading an official land acknowledgement that we've published in that plan. I know the teachings that I've experienced have been to talk about the land and where we are in very personal ways. And so today I'm going to be a bit more official about it, but my gratitude extends. And with that, many of us are aware, but some of us were not as or those of you who have visited the college, that Pearson College, it lives, learns, and works on the unceded territory of the Chiano First Nation. The Chiano people, although distinct in an independent nation, are part of a larger Indigenous cultural group referred to as Coast Salish on Vancouver Island, with a broad area that encompasses southern Vancouver Island, where right now the sun is rising. The word Chiano translates from the Klugum language as the place of big fish, indicating the richness of sea life in the region that has sustained the Chiano people and neighboring First Nations with food, shelter, medicine, and clothing. The Chiano people are known as people of the salmon, which reflects the marine environment where the culture and history developed. We acknowledge that the land that Pearson sits on and where I stand is unceded territory, which respects the facts that Chiano people never gave up, legally signed away, or ceded their lands to Canada, nor to Pearson College. And later today, we are going to welcome you to visit our reconciliation page where it has a even fuller land acknowledgement. And I want to really give thanks and raise my hands to those who worked so hard on making that possible, and to all the conversations that have happened at Pearson and at Beecher Bay, so that we can have an ongoing community connection and ongoing community relationship. Speaking of community, before we get into the program today, I also want to acknowledge as we come to the close of December and of 2020, that we've lost many members of our community this year. This is an in memoriam of people who have passed away in 2020, some as recently as this week. I want to acknowledge that for some of you may not have known this news, and though we have tried to extend our very best to make sure the alumni community and the wider Pearson community knows about this, it is with heavy hearts that we look and remember each of these individuals. Peter Gardner, who's the last person listed there, would say, okay, Heather, what's next? And so with that, I also want to acknowledge that our board has undergone transition. And as we say goodbye to 2 alumni members of the board and another community member, we also welcome 3 new members to the board who happen to all be alum, and you can see them there. I believe they're joining us at our 4 p.m. call today, but we want to acknowledge their contribution. Both of those who are leaving the board, it's an extensive volunteer service, and also for those who are coming, a great welcome. Welcome also to all of you on the call. I know I gave a shout out to some alum as we were gathering in our gallery view. And speaking of which, let's see who is here. So if you wish to see everybody who's on the call, you can go up to view. It looks like a little waffle, and get gallery view. And then you'll see many, many people on the call. And for those of us who don't know every face, I would encourage you to rename yourself. So you can go up to the right-hand corner of your photograph. There's 3 dots. If you click on those three dots, you could rename yourself like I did. I named myself Heather Gross, Pearson College Year 20, VP Education. Feel free to name yourself. Who are you? What's your connection to the college? For most of our student experience, when we went online, we renamed ourselves with our pronouns, and of course I welcome those as well. But for the purposes of this call, feel free to say who you are and what your connection is. And how many family members are on the screen, Rita? That's lovely. You can see how that goes. So I know that parents are joining us today, some parents of year 46 and year 47. We wanted to make sure that we grounded the December experience and what's happening at the college. I know that alumni are on the call, as I've already mentioned. There's some students on the call. Thank you for joining us this morning before your class. I see volunteers, see former heads, faculty and staff. I'm really glad to see you and former members and current members of our community here on the call. The session today, we're going to talk a little bit about 2020, what it's been like for each of us, what it's been like for the college, what our plans are for winter break. Then we're going to talk about some of the engagement opportunities and things that our alumni have been involved with and things that all of you on the call could get involved with. And the bulk of our conversation will be to look at the Reconciliation Action Plan. And I'm very honored that 3 members of the Indigenous Visions Advisory Council are with us on the call. So thank you, Corey and Angie and Christina, for joining us this morning. And we'll throw it over to you in a moment. Uncharacteristically for anything at Pearson College, I've been talking a lot. And so to break that up and also to give a real opportunity of cherishing the fact that the community can come together, we're going to go into small breakout rooms on Zoom. I'm going to encourage you to introduce yourselves, and hopefully there'll be some variety with the people in the room, people who you know, or perhaps those who you don't. But also to talk about how you're managing as we head into a season of rounding out 2020. What are some of the new things you're trying this year? What are some of the traditions you're trying? And that will lead us into the conversation with about what we're trying at Pearson College as we lead into the end of the year in a completely different way. So as I make these rooms, we're going to have about 8 minutes, so you can really spend the time to introduce each other, and I won't pester you. And really, I hope that you have a wonderful conversation reminiscent of times you may have visited or been at Pearson. Welcome back. I hope some of you came back very slowly from your breakout room, so I hope that's a sign of good conversation. If anyone wants to put in the chat some of the things you talked about, the ways you're remaking traditions as we come to the end of 2020, I'm always interested to hear, and I think it would be interesting to hear what people have come across the community. Right now, I do want to ask specifically Rasim and Giovanni. Rasim, I see you. Hopefully Giovanni, I'll see you once you start talking. Rasim, we'll start with you. What is something that has been different this year at Pearson College? And you can introduce yourself first, of course.
Okay, so I'm Rasim. I'm year 46. I come from Quebec and Algeria. So this year is my last year, and I must say that it's quite different from the first one. Obviously how things have changed is that now we have masks like everyone around the world. We also have sanitizing wipes everywhere in every room, hand sanitizer in every room. And yes, exactly, those. And I'm also a member of the COVID-19 working group, which is a very new group that was created and that is meeting every week to reconsider COVID regulations on campus.
That's great, thank you. And where are you calling in from right now? I see a tree behind you.
Yes, that's the Christmas tree in Victoria House Day Room.
Victoria House Day Room, that will be sentimental for lots of people. I think Laura, I think you and I were in Victoria House. And Giovanni, I know you're on the call. Do you want to say some of the things that we're planning for winter break? as I think all of you know now, we have made the difficult decision to keep the students here in our bubble for winter break. So it's very different than it's been before. But Giovanni, I know you've been involved in thinking about what that could look like. What are some of the things you have planned?
Yeah, hola, hola. First, my name is Giovanni. I'm from Venezuela. I'm in Calgary House, the best house at Pearson. Uh, yeah, we're trying to make winter break the best break as possible because we're going to stay on campus, and that's something that is new for us. I think we're going to be the first year actually that is staying on campus for winter break. Some of the activities we're trying to do basically is to get off campus because we haven't been able to do it because of COVID. So we're trying to, okay, well, let's go on a hike to Juan de Fuca Trail, for example, or let's go biking to Galloping Goose. I don't know, let's explore around. Also, we're trying to organize more like formal dance, maybe dancing activities or cultural activities. I know Racine is one of the person leading the winter concert. We couldn't do it in my choosing this year. So we're trying to do it from here, from campus, and then I think record it and sending the video to my chosen community because we missed that last year. We also have a lot of workshops. We have some card and bed making, also gift making. The community, the administration is helping us a lot to, okay, let's try to do something that the whole community can enjoy and the whole community can, yeah, take advantage of the place where we are and just enjoy our break, 3 weeks on campus. But yeah, basically those are the main ones. We also have, I'm pretty excited about well, one specific workshop that is a drumming workshop. Yeah, I'm pretty passionate about drumming, so I'm looking forward for that one. And there are many workshops out there that people wanna join and are doing. So yeah, those are the main activities so far we have.
Wonderful. Thank you, Giovanni. I really appreciate it. And where are you calling in from? I think the common room?
Yeah, I'm in the common room right now.
Nice, nice. Lots of, you're getting ready to dance already. So I know that there's a lot of things we can't do this year, but I think it's wonderful to hear about all the things we can do. So Estella, thank you for a good question. Are students able to mingle with each other freely on campus, or are smaller groups only allowed? Does either of you want to answer how that's managed? Racine, go for it. You're on the COVID working group.
Yes, no, students can mingle around, but obviously we must pay attention to some health measures to follow. As in indoor spaces, all rooms have a max capacity of students. In the common room, for example, it's 8, I believe. So 8 students could spend time together in the common room. And in the LLT or Anne Anthony McCoon Theater, we have 30 as a max capacity. So we must follow some health protocols, but social interactions are still very possible. And we can still go to house parents' houses as long as we are in small numbers, not more than 4 students.
Oh, thank you. Giovanni, did you want to say something to that? And then I'll let you both go because I know you have class at 8:30.
Yeah, I think this year has been difficult in many ways and different, but at the same time, we're taking advantage of so many things that we were doing. Something that for me was super different experience for this year. Last year, before I came to Pearson, I didn't connect with any of my co-years online. But this year, all the first years are really bonding online a lot because many people are not able to be here. For example, people from Latin America, they haven't been able to get their visas, but they are trying to connect with people on campus and their co-years online. And that's something that I don't know, it's different because for me, I didn't do it, but it feels like a new way to, okay, how do we create community online? How can we do things differently? So yeah, that's something that I think is really good this year.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm seeing just another couple comments in the chat. One, that singing on the bay sounds amazing. And yes, I think that's going to be one of the highlights if we can make it all work. Going in a canoe and doing some caroling. And then also asking about being able to access mental health services. So are the counselors still here? Are you still able to connect with your advisors?
I'm going to answer that. Yeah, we do. We have a meeting with our advisors every Tuesday, and all the councils are available for us. You just have to send an email to them. Hey, can we connect? And also, last week, Masood was able to come to camp. So Masood is our main counselor on campus. So you could have appointments with him here on campus. Obviously, like wearing your mask and their office. But yeah, we have all the support, mental health support, and everything we need right now.
Wonderful. That's good to hear, and that is a challenge. I think it's a very sensitive question. It is a challenge for everybody at this time, looking at how we manage. And speaking of having people online, really, I'm happy to say that most of our first-year students have gotten their visas. We have about 10 students still in quarantine, planning to come in the next couple of weeks, and we have another 15 or so students still waiting on visas. We're hopeful, but we will defer them until the following year if that's not possible by January. But we're working on building the community, and we're almost all here together now. So thank you. I know 8:30 is an important time for any students who are on the call as our classes start. Then really appreciate you joining us. And with that appreciation, I want to pass things over to Benoit to talk about some of the ways alumni are engaging and connecting.
Thank you. I'm Benoit, I'm year 9. I'm also the director of alumni relations at Pearson. I'm so happy to see this global village coming together now for the second time, bringing people from almost 40 countries. About more than 100 people have registered this time around. There's 58 on the call right now. This is wonderful. And among some of the activities that will be engaging alumni and families alike is an idea that came up among our pioneers, among years 1 and 2. And I know that Kim Nemrava is on the call, so I'd ask her to unmute and maybe explain where this idea came from, what it is, and what you wish to accomplish.
Thanks, Benoit. First of all, greetings to everyone. My name's Kimberly Nemrava. I was Kimberly Gilmore when I was at the college. This is such a simple idea, but we really hope that alumni and all types of alumni of the college may be involved in this. And I just want you to take a moment to go back to when you were at the college and how important it was on those December holidays to either get out and get back to your families or to go to other host families. And of course, this year, for the first time ever, all the students are staying on campus. As you've already seen, there's incredible creativity around what they're doing, but you can imagine just how challenging this is going to be for them. So what we're asking people to do is send them a message of support, whatever that looks like. Let them know that there are hundreds of people, alumni of the college, whether it's alumni, former staff, or a supporter, or a former student, who care about them, appreciate what they're going through, and wish them the best. You can send a card. Benoit has set up an electronic way to do this. You just put it in, or Nicola has just set up an electronic way to do this. So we're just asking people to reach out and let the students who are at the college now know that you care, know that you're thinking of them, and maybe tell them a story or something funny or whatever inspires you to let them know that they're part of a big global network that cares about what everybody's going through.
Thank you very much, Kim. Thank you for that. And speaking of alumni coming to help some of the students on campus, I know that Comfort is on the call right now, and I'd like to hear from him of their initiative of African alumni having a dialogue and a conversation with current students from years 46 and 7. Comfort, can you jump in and tell us about your initiative?
Good evening, everyone. It's evening for me, so morning for you. What I think about a month ago or so, a few of us were just chit-chatting about how this whole year Zoom has been such a big connector that we've been making links with people from all over the place, that why don't we connect It started with finding other alumni. What has happened to the people we were on campus with? And what happened, sometimes it might not be somebody directly in your time, but you know them through either your first year or your second year, that kind of thing. What has happened to all those people? So that's how we started. And as we were talking about where we are, and we are spread all over the place, one of the things that really came out was the experience that we have is very unique, but it keeps living with you. But individually, there are some things that you might doubt about. Are you still on the path? And especially when you see what other people are doing. So we just wanted to get together and say, speak to especially the students who are still on campus. The African students, that's where we wanted to focus on that. There are different routes for you after you leave the college, right? There's no one way or wrong way. I mean, some of us came back to Africa, but some stayed in North America and some went to Asia. There's not a right way. Some are doing very well in terms of social engagement, but some are just busy in their little corner at home in your own town, you know. So what are all the different ways in which you can continue to live this Pearson experience? And we have other people to tell you about how we have traveled. So that's the general idea.
Thank you very much, Comfort. And finally, I'd like to mention another ongoing activity, this one not in relief of or in caring for the students, but in terms of alumni reaching out to each other and enriching their lives. And Laurie Houston is on the call, and she has launched an activity, an initiative called the Global Village Speaker Series. Laurie, could you tell us about that activity, please?
Thank you very much, Benoit. So I came to the conclusion that we have a really huge resource of individuals within our community and the UWC community, and also colleagues at large that we've met through life in other ways, to come together and discuss issues of global significance, because there's a lot of them right now, as we well know. And I almost feel like it is our duty to talk to each other about what we can do to mitigate the things that are happening within our world right now. So I've initiated this speaker series, and as you can see on the screen, Martin Jongsma from year 4, who I was talking to earlier this morning to go over his presentation, he'll be delivering an event tomorrow for us, talking about GMs and their place in sustainably feeding the world. And he's developed a wonderful talk, and I really implore all of you to try and make his talk if you can, and if you can't, it will be on our Facebook site. So we have a Global Village Speaker Series Facebook site that you can look on, and all of the events have been recorded and are accessible on that site, as well as articles of global significance. I invite anyone to contact me if you're interested in participating in this endeavor, and I hope more and more of you will join me. I think it's a really meaningful way for us to communicate with each other and hopefully make some change that's positive for our world moving forward.
Thank you very much, Laurie. And now I would like to give it back to you, Heather.
Great, thanks so much. And I think there's a little bit of a question about dates. I know you can look into that and confirm that, Benoit.
It is definitely tomorrow, 12th December. Sorry, I was doing the slides this morning, took an older slide. It is tomorrow, 12th September.
All's well. All's well. One of the things we've just finished doing at Pearson in all of our TOK classes, in fact, every single TOK class has spent the last 4 weeks, or 2 months really, but 4 weeks specifically, looking at Indigenous realities, both here in Canada and internationally. And as we introduce this next section of the Global Village Update, I want to acknowledge that part of the idea of these is to have an insight into what's happening on campus, as well as what's going on in the wider community. And so we hope, and we're interested in feedback about other things you'd like to talk about, or other ways that we can connect. And we're grateful today that, especially heading into winter break, that we can put some names to faces for parents and others who usually would be hosting students at this time. So as we shift into this topic that has been really on our minds here on campus, I want to pass it to Corey Wilson, who's a member of our board and who has been integral in this process. I know Christina and Angie are also on the call, as are Craig and Ty, all ready to speak about the Reconciliation Action Plan. I appreciate that people have been putting notes into the chat, and I'm happy to keep watching that for questions as they come up. And the other thing I'll say before I pass it over is one of the things we did with our students that has been really interesting is to look at where the traditional territory and often unacknowledged traditional territories of where we live is. So I've put into the chat a site, which if you're a multitasker on Zoom, I welcome you to go to open a different window or to go on a different device and just take a look at that map. It's a map of the world. It does not list everything in the world, depending on where you are. Comfort, I don't think Pretoria is there. But some of the places are listed, and certainly the Western Hemisphere and Oceania are very well represented with self-identified traditional territories. So take a moment to see where it is you are, or where you are from, or where you have traveled, and learn some more about the places we've been to. So Corey, I'm going to pass it over to you, knowing that that whole group is ready to speak to this as well.
Great. Sorry, I'm just typing in a phone number too. Yeah. So for those of you that are in Canada, if you,
great.
I just put in a phone number. So if you type in your postal code by text messaging, it'll also tell you whose traditional territory you're on. There are some flaws in it. For example, I'm coming to you today from the unceded territory of the Musqueam people. And when I type in my postal code, it doesn't actually acknowledge Musqueam. So it's not perfect, but it'll give you a bit of at least a space, a relative space. So I'm open to any questions. And I'd like to acknowledge all of the hard work that went into this. And as you said, Angie and Christina are on the call. Like, you're somewhere in the maze of people. So there was a lot of hard work from students to alumni to faculty and staff, to Ty and Brian and Craig at the very end, editing the document to get it ready and present to the board. It was passed by the board at our last board meeting in November. Very exciting. I don't know how many of you have had a chance to look at it and read it, but it is a very significant document. I think it's going to, especially in light of the type of world that we're in at the moment, change the tone and just simply by acknowledging the place and space that Pearson College has occupied, as well as, the Indigenous students that have been there. It is an aspirational document. It's not a finished document. It's not as though we will complete this in the 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, check the box, we're done. It's something that's intended to filter across all aspects of Pearson College. And in many ways, it aligns also with the focus on equity, on inclusion, and on diversity. Which is you would think would be a natural thing at Pearson College, which in many ways it is, but there of course are some challenges. And I guess it's important to know that I'm really proud that this document has been Indigenous led. It also focuses on truth. So the foundation of it is truth. We must have the really difficult, uncomfortable conversations, particularly in Canada, around Indigenous people and our history to move forward. As well as it's about a commitment a commitment to this process and respect for this process. And the other, we called them 4 posts. The other one is having shared values and shared understanding. And we have been fortunate at Pearson, particularly in the last couple of years, with help from the support from the National Committee, to specifically target and look for Indigenous students to bring them in to Pearson. And we've had people from Greenland, we've had Indigenous people from other parts of the world as well. So it's not just those from North America. And you'll see there's a guiding framework, eight guides, I guess, or whatever, 8 areas, sections. And if you read it and look at it, you'll see that it covers all kind of aspects of Pearson College. So indigenization or pursuing reconciliation isn't just about adding Indigenous content to the curriculum. It's about learning and sharing Indigenous ways of knowing and being, and have those filter throughout the college experience, from the student's perspective, from the parents' perspective, from the board perspective as well. You know, we're looking to, of course, respect and have diversity and inclusion on our board. And I think you can see in reading the bios of the 3 new board members, we've worked really hard to achieve that. We need another Indigenous person, but trust me, I'm working on that as well. So I guess just leave it at that. If people have any questions about that, or if Angie and Christina wanted to say anything, please do. Or I could just keep babbling. I mean, I
do have a question, if I can take the opportunity to ask. So I was following one of the staff members, Maria, who is at Pearson now and who I've worked with before. She's in charge of the experiential education, and I was so glad to see that she went with a few students to an Indigenous blockage of logging project, and I wanted to ask if the school is thinking of extending the CAS curriculum sort of as a service component to some of the issues that the Indigenous population today is still fighting for. And I'm especially curious because it overlaps so much with biodiversity and things like ecosystem restoration, or even, you know, just logging some of the old growth, or not logging some of the old growth, and the difference it would make for biodiversity on the island. So yeah, I wanted to ask you if that is also something that's in line with the college, or do you feel like there is too much of a conflict with participating in direct action? Thanks.
I would say that I don't see it as a conflict at all. I think there's a natural affinity between Indigenous values, Indigenous reconciliation, and pursuing reconciliation to sustainability, to the success and survival of Mother Earth. There's a natural affinity there. Also, in terms of course, COVID has thrown a bit of a wrench into our plans. We are moving ahead with some of the initiatives, but COVID in terms of has limited us in our ability to work much more closely with the Shianu people, and not just the Shianu, but the surrounding. There's 8 First Nations within the Lower Mainland Victoria area. So certainly once we're able to move about, and you know, the kids can't even go. The students, I always say kids, but the students can't even really go and volunteer. But we're looking at what contributions, what can the students and faculty and staff contribute to the surrounding Indigenous communities in an urban environment, because there's many Indigenous people in Victoria that aren't actually from one of the local First Nations. So we are definitely building those relationships, and building sustainable relationships is a key to this as well.
Thanks so much. And I'm going to turn it over to Craig. There's a couple questions. Oh, Angie's saying that she needs to go. Oh, thank you, Angie. I'm sorry we didn't get to you in the speaking way. She's given her email there. I appreciate that. And Craig, there are a couple questions that have come up that I see you're answering in the chat. If you want to speak to how they're happening at the college, that would be great too, around the curriculum planning, as well as this issue of Fairy Creek and other activism in CAS.
Yeah, thank you, Heather. I think as Corey mentioned in the Reconciliation Action Plan, there's a really good focus, strong focus on Indigenous epistemology. So how do we see through that lens? Two-eyed seeing is a phrase that is used. I think it's a very powerful phrase. I think once you adopt that authentically, that Indigenous epistemology, then of course the interconnection with environmental issues is really, really intuitive, and it's really aligned, which is why we took a group of students to Fairy Creek, which is, as is often the case in BC, a place where there is an awareness of logging companies perhaps overstepping the remit of what they're allowed to do in terms of cutting back old growth. And so we gave some students some exposure to that. It did involve the local involvement of a First Nation elder. And I think that was the beginnings of that process. And I think the other piece that connects to a question in the chat is around our local college partners here, Royal Roads University and VIU, whose president is an alum of Pearson, is they already have and are already creating courses where you have an integration of Indigenous stewardship of the land and ecosystem diversity courses that are integrated. So you're learning from the practices of local Indigenous populations that have stewarded this land for thousands of years, and that's integrated in the courses they offer. So we want to explore the notion of running a parallel program sometime in the future alongside the diploma that would utilize the location of Pearson, which is really set up for place-based education because of its forest, its waterfront, the fact that it's the land that we share with Sianu, and to really explore that. And I think it's a really important piece to do. And I think it's also, you know, as Heather mentioned as well during our TOK sessions in the last couple of months, is really making sure that students see this through that lens. The last point on that one is, I think I've mentioned many times before to our students, the Iroquois Confederacy statement that was made around all decisions have to go through 7 generations of impact. I think that one statement, we've been pushing it through our community. If you thought about that for any practice, whether it was related to ecosystem or environmental stewardship or business practices or politics, 7 generations of impact must be the lens through which you make any decision. So I think that shows the opportunity there.
Sure. And I'll just add I'll add another little fact if people want to know, is that the Iroquois Confederacy is actually referenced in the US Constitution. So when we talk about Indigenous people and our influence on the world, we influence the American, I don't know what we'd say much about the democracy of now, but influence the American Constitution of 1776. And I'll just also add that in terms of decolonization and in terms of the IB curriculum, I was talking to one of my classmates not too long ago. And in many ways, we have led in this area. We didn't know that it was necessarily decolonization or an Indigenous way of teaching. But those of you that had Gary Fletcher or Dave Baird for biology or chemistry, when all the times we had to walk about in the woods and observe and, you know, go back and observe a certain spot, or when I was in diving and had to do the marking and the flipping of the checking of the species and drawing and recording, all of that stuff is really an Indigenous way of learning through the world. So I mean, certainly in terms of content, there's a lot more that needs to be added to some of the IB courses. And often I hear from teachers, particularly maths and physics, as well, how am I going to add Indigenous content? There's all kinds of ways to do that. So I think there's Pearson in many ways has been leading in this experimental learning type way. The IB, of course, is a big organization, as we know, but I think we can do a lot on campus. Plus, we can continue to push the IB to move in a direction that is much more responsive and receptive to other ways of knowing and being. And in terms of the CAS experience for students, or CASE, I always forget what that is, but we're looking at opportunities and having Pearson be a real partner in indigenization, a real partner in reconciliation, in a real strong community partner particularly in the lower Vancouver Island.
Thanks so much. And I see Christina has put in the chat a little note. Christina, if you want to just raise your voice here as well. There are questions about conflict resolution, which you may want to speak to.
Yeah, hi. So I am year 30. I come from Dene and Cree territory in the South Slave region of the Northwest Territories. with a Métis background myself. When I was on campus, the one time that sort of my indigeneity was acknowledged and invited in a semi-meaningful way was when my first year from New Zealand's uncle was coming, and he was in a chief role, and he came and they were like, oh, we need to find an Indigenous student to welcome this person. And so then it was like, you're Métis, right? Okay, come on in. Because it wasn't really something that was discussed in those days. I was there 2003 to 2005. And one thing that's really beautiful is I recently had the opportunity to host a student from the Northwest Territories, and I went to high school with her mom. And it was just the opportunity to connect. And and she's from a smaller community than even that I'm from. And that for me inspires this idea of intergenerational Indigenous mentorship. It's what I'm focusing on in my PhD studies right now. And I'm at UVic in the School of Nursing. And I know there's so many things we can learn from each other. And I know I recently attended a webinar that Corey Wilson was giving with BC Campus and BCIT and all that work. I find that sometimes, people will get so focused on what we're doing over here in this area, where it's also really important to be open and inclusive to what's going on locally or in other schools, provincially or nationally and internationally, especially with the unique situatedness of Pearson College, welcoming in, Indigenous students and non-Indigenous students to where they're presently located to come to Pearson, and then unpacking that. And I think that's one of the things I've seen from the students I'm hosting in recent years is there is a bit of a conversation about the impact of colonization on Indigenous health and well-being and self-determination globally. And so again, like Corey said, I just want to reiterate, there's no finish line. There's no okay, reconciliation, there's the end. We've passed it and look at us. No, it's more of a journey, and definitely in the same way for Remembrance Day or Veterans Day, we often use the phrase "lest we forget," and I think that's what's so important: having this plan in writing, having it accepted by the board, and then looking at again, we've come so far. It's my new mantra these days. We've come so far, but we still have so far to go. And so with that, we must never get too comfortable. And so I'm really excited to see that there's a lot of interest and support. And myself, I'd be really interested in engaging, other Indigenous alumni, for example, across the years to try to sort of look at, again, like in nursing, I've been looking at curriculum and how to, integrate those things. And I think back to, philosophy class, for example, and a lot of times it's continental philosophers and but old white men that are being studied in the tradition of philosophy and scholarship, whereas there are tons of, and then that's again another way of orienting. And I think theory of knowledge really inspired and informed my way of looking at the world, just taking that course even, because when Western knowledge is looked at as one way of knowing instead of the way of knowing, it makes a difference. Mm-hmm. And so when we can look at other ways of knowing and doing and being at a school such as Pearson College, bringing everyone together, again, we've come pretty far, but we still have a long ways to go. So that is my thoughts, and just really excited and happy to be on the call today and to see so many good faces and good spirits here.
Thank you so much, Christina. And I would be remiss if I didn't also take this opportunity to extend tremendous gratitude to all the people who both live near and a little bit further who really support our students. So Christina and Tendai are an example of a family who are a host family as well as being alum. I think also on the call, there are other host families. While we're not able to engage the same way we have in the past due to COVID, we still are really appreciative of the work and the engagement that happens. I think we have just a little bit more time, just 5 minutes left. I know our VP Operations is also on the call. And Ty, if you'd like to speak to the Reconciliation Action Plan, that would be great. And while he's doing that, if there are any final questions, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll make sure we conclude on time.
Well, so much has been said already. I don't know how much more I can add, except that I think the whole process over the past 3 to 4 years has been an incredible educational journey as well, because so many people did not understand anything about reconciliation truly. And what this has done is really enlightened many of our own faculty, our staff, and other administrators that are responsible, of course, for guiding much of what our students do on the campus day in and day out. So that in and of itself was very important. And I just kept recalling constantly what the author of this document, Marcia Turner, just kept talking about this journey, and she kept referring, this is a forever journey. And, I've never forgotten that. And one of the great things to see this morning as well is we always talk about the 4,200 alumni that are out there. So when Benoit has put together these wonderful global village gatherings online, I think it's very inspiring for all of us to have insight into some of those 4,200 alumni, and to be able to talk this morning about the hard work that has been done in this reconciliation plan has been very inspiring as well. So thank you. That's all I have to say, Heather.
Thanks so much. I do appreciate that reflection, and I'm seeing some gratitude in the chat. It's such a pleasure to put together these sessions, to be able to reach out to alum, to parents, to members of our community who we're not able to welcome on campus right now. And so I agree. I hope that we can extend this kind of community building that happens beyond Petter Bay, beyond this campus, even after COVID times. And I also hope that we can welcome each of you back to campus when times are different. And so let's keep both of those ideas going at the same time. Craig, is there anything you'd like to say to conclude? Otherwise, I have an idea for how we can say goodbye.
Thank you, Heather. I've just put that in the chat just to reiterate what you've said. Just thank you all for taking the time to connect. These are increasingly important kind of informal ways of keeping in touch. And we want to do as many as possible and to draw in as many people as can give up their time. So thank you again. And we look forward to meeting you again in a different Global Village focus that we'll have in a couple of months.
Wonderful. If you have ideas for what a theme you'd like to see or something you'd like us to tackle in or content or process, I know I'd love to have a conversation corner or some sort of moment where we go around and talk to different people. Any of those things, feel free to email myself or of course Benoit. So with that, thank you for going with us through some memories, all the people and engagement, what's campus looking like for winter break, and now the Reconciliation Action Plan. And I would encourage you to go to Gallery View and to unmute yourself and to say goodbye and hello as we sign off the call now. So thanks you very much, and goodbye and hello.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.